Soul Calibur 4.
Soul Calibur is one of my favorite fighting franchises. It's easy to get into and play, but yet there's still a lot of depth in the series. You can play casually if you want, but if you feel like learning all the characters, then this series could soak up your whole life. The most responsible feature for this is the fact that almost none of the moves take any amount of button pressing skill to do. Sure, some of the more powerful moves are harder to pull off, but for the most part it's all about when to use a move instead of if I can hit those buttons in a very specific way. I'm looking at you, Street Fighter. Soul Calibur 4 doesn't get rid of any of the good portions of the series, but takes away some of the pointless parts and adds features that do a really good job at complementing the series. For one, they have removed a feature that I'm sure someone somewhere out there uses, but I know that neither I nor anyone I've ever talked to has, and that's soul charging. That's right, you can no longer spend 5 seconds standing still in order to hit your opponent with a tiny bit of more damage. Instead, we have critical finishes, which are equally useless, but at least they're useless in an entertaining way. A critical finish is a one-hit kill, but it can only be pulled off in an extremely specific situation. The more you block your opponent's attack, the more he will wear down your guard. Once your guard is gone, your adversary can perform a guard breaker attack, and if your guard breaks, he can very quickly press all the attack buttons, or just RB or R1 on a console, to end the match with a sometimes awesome, sometimes weird finishing move. This was designed to punish those who block too much, and while it was a nice idea, you can recharge your blocking strength with just a few attacks, so as long as you keep a slight offensive, you can block as much as you want. So in the end, critical finishes are a nice idea, but they come off as too hard and too rare. For the most part, the game is very well balanced. Keelik is still cheap as hell, and Astaroth will still make you throw your controller as he tosses you off the map again and again, but if you're skilled enough you know how to use your character, then there are ways to get around a cheap tactic. Luckily, this time around, Project Soul has realized that not everyone likes working their butt off to unlock every character, so they made most of the characters unlockable by buying them, which means you can choose who you unlock first. The Apprentice can be a little tricky to unlock as you actually have to beat him with another Star Wars character, but it makes sense to have someone who takes skill to unlock. Character creation is back from Soul Calibur 3, only this time you can only use the movesets for pre-existing characters, so you're essentially just reskinning an existing character. It would have been nice to see separate movesets, but after seeing how that works in Soul Calibur 3, I don't blame them for scrapping the idea. That said, the degree of customization is astounding. The graphics are gorgeous, textures are rendered beautifully, and animation is smooth as it can possibly be. Voice acting can be a little cheesy, and sometimes it'll make you want to change to Japanese and just use the subtitles, as even that voice acting can be better than the English one. Another improvement Soul Calibur brings to the table is campaign mode that's actually fun to play. It's called Tower of Souls, and with it comes a perk system similar to Call of Duty 4's multiplayer, only a bit deeper. You have 4 slots for perks, and the type of armor you are wearing determines how powerful these perks can be. They might let you become invisible for a short time or give you extra health. In multiplayer, playing with these perks seems cheap, as if you're not very good at the game you could just use your character with double health and super powerful attacks, but in Tower of Souls you will find that you will need these advantages as the game can get very, very hard. Moving on to multiplayer. As I said, the perk systems feel very cheap, but the option to play classic versus is thankfully still there. For the most part, the game is lag-free, with only a few moments of slowdown that are mutually shared by both players. But in around a quarter of all games I've played, I experience what's known as button lag. I press the block button, and about a second later, my character blocks. A second may not sound like a lot, but in a fighting game, it's an eternity. Luckily, any lag or network issues I experience, my opponent experiences too. So while this lag may be extremely annoying sometimes, it never gives one player an advantage over the other. Grand Theft Auto 4 was possibly the most hyped game that came out last year. It promised a killer story, all new gameplay, and a new, living, breathing rendition of Liberty City. Did it deliver? The answer is 100% yes. The first thing you notice about this game is the voice acting and how superb it is. The actors for pretty much everyone were really into their respective roles and delivered the lines flawlessly.
Here? No thank you. Oh, I agree. Let's have whiskey instead.
The story itself is very immersive with loads of backstory and side paths for each character to be explored. You play as Nico Bellic. He's an immigrant from East Europe. We're not told which country exactly, but it's made out to be a hellish, war-torn society. There is a central plot, but it's blurred by the huge amount of different characters to do missions for and their stories. It's sometimes impossible to discern a side mission from a normal mission, as all of them have the same amount of care applied to make them fun. That said, the missions can be frustrating. There are plenty of really fun missions that give you something to do that you've never tried before, but those make up about half the assignments given to you. The other half consists of straight-up shooting. A new cover mechanic is applied this time around and definitely adds to the shooting, but sometimes it can feel a little redundant. Go here, kill this person, go into that building and shoot everyone. These are the objectives that make up around 50% of all missions that I've played. If you don't mind doing the same thing over and over again, as long as it's fun, then you won't have any problem with this. But there is one fatal flaw in all the missions. They lack checkpoints. Sometimes this isn't that bad, as you start at the objective and if you die, you just try again. But some of these missions are ridiculously hard. Take, for instance, a mission that requires you to rob a bank and get away. You start out a ways away from the objective. You spend 5 minutes driving there while your buddies carry on an admittedly interesting conversation that changes every time you replay it. When you get there, you are charged with running on foot 2 miles or so, all the while defending from cops coming at you from all sides. Then you go into the subway tracks after a frustrating confrontation with a SWAT team or two. You reach the surface and are charged with finding a 4-door car. If you manage to find one, you drive up to your buddies and wait as they take their own sweet time getting in, and then you drive away. And then you get blown to pieces by a well-placed shot from a cop in a helicopter. Guess what? You now have to start all over again. You have to drive all the way back from the starting point to the bank and everything. Nothing is more frustrating than that. It's a good thing that this mission was vital for story progression, otherwise I would have never put up with having to do it 5 or 6 times before succeeding. Even without doing any missions, just driving around the city and studying it is breathtaking. It's amazing how much work was put into making the city like a real city. You can hail taxis, you can buy clothes or food, you can even stop by your house to watch TV, which has several channels on it. The game even has its own mini-internet. A lot of this stuff you will never think to use. You might not even notice it if you're just doing missions. A big change many will notice about this installment in the series is that it's much less arcadey and unrealistic than the past entries in the franchise. Helicopters fly like real helicopters, it takes much practice and skill to drift around a corner in a car, and a headshot will take out even someone wearing full body armor. Some miss the wacky nature of the old Grand Theft Auto games, and some say it's not as fun as similar games like Saints Row, but I say the series benefits greatly from this overhaul. It may be harder to do certain things like precision helicopter flying or stunt driving, but that makes it all the more rewarding when you master something like that. Online multiplayer is very well crafted. Most of the game modes are generic, with a few standouts, but the real fun lies in free mode. 16 players plopped into Liberty City to do whatever they feel like. There are a few minor nitpicks I have to make about the multiplayer, such as the radio stations that aren't synchronized, and about half the cars from single player are missing, but it's still fun to make up games to play like Tag or Rooftop Fight Club. Even a game my friends and I called the 28 Weeks Later maneuver. Get to the airport, one person grabs a helicopter, everybody else grabs a car. The helicopter guy has to try and hit the cars into the water with his chopper blades. Anyone who has seen 28 Weeks Later will recognize where that idea came from. Burnout Paradise takes the acclaimed action racing series in a new, more open direction. It has its flaws, like the need to look at your map often, but those problems are overshadowed by the fantastic sense of speed, jaw-dropping crash physics, and phenomenal multiplayer and post-launch support. Soul Calibur 4 is without a doubt the best entry in the series so far. Find yourself a few friends to play with and you'll be playing this game for a while. And with the release of the relatively cheap Darth Vader for 360 and Yoda for PS3, it's assured that DLC will continue to support this game. GTA 4 has so much content stuffed onto a single disc $60 game that anyone would be a fool to think that he should just skip it. If they had added checkpoints and a few more mission variations, I would not hesitate at giving this game the perfect score, but I think most will be satisfied with the next best thing. Burnout Paradise, Grand Theft Auto 4, and Soul Calibur 4 all get A's. Next week, it's awards time. I round up some of the best games of last year and tell you which one I think was the best. All this and more next week on the Sharp and Pointy Perspective.